Hello and welcome everyone to GitLab monthly release kickoff call. Today we'll kick off release 14.6, the final release for this calendar year, slated for December 22nd, 2021. I'd like to remind everyone that the information discussed here today is related to upcoming products, features, functionality, and the information, and is for informational purposes only. So please do not rely on it for purchasing or planning decisions. What we have here and what we share is subject to change or delay without notice. Now let's get to the fun part. We invite everybody to contribute. You can do so by finding issues and videos on our kickoff page. And the way we're going to start off, before I hand off to our first speaker, I want to talk about a couple of things. First, reiterate our focus on reliability, security, and performance. Usability and AST leadership for this fiscal year. And then, in fact, in fiscal 23, we will continue to have a steady focus on all of these capabilities. Second, we have identified fiscal 23 themes. And those are improving key workflow usability. In fiscal 22, we had a broad effort to improve usability. We accomplished a lot, but we also learned that we needed a concerted effort to improve key workflows. So we're going to focus on that. Second, extending our lead in CI/CD. CI is one of the first use cases customers experience that provide them value and appreciation for the potential of the single application. We have identified that we can do a lot more to help our users in this space. So we plan to spend a lot of energy on CI and also make it equally easy and seamless to enable CD. Check out our deployment direction for more on that. And then third, data and machine learning driven insights for GitLab and for customers. As software itself transforms to include machine learning and models, we aim to make it easier for GitLab users to embrace these technologies and combine them with the best practices of DevOps. In addition, we'll use insights from data and machine learning in a privacy-respecting manner to improve our own decision-making capabilities, ranging from product investment decisions to helping customers derive maximum value from GitLab and to drive efficient and predictable businesses. Today's order of operations will be starting with Josh, Director of Enablement, followed by David DeSanto, who will talk about the dev section, followed by Hillary, who will talk about the sec section, and then Kenny will bring us hope on the ops section. Take it away, Josh.
So let's jump into it on enablement. We have, to kick things off on the GitLab host first theme, we'll jump into Geo and what they're working on. And they are working towards increasing the verification support for all of what we would call a blob replicator. So for those of you who might not be aware, we have recently finished support for replicating all the content types, but we want to make sure that the content has been replicated correctly and that continues to be there and is still correct. This provides confidence to our administrators that they can fail over if necessary and the content will still be there. So we are working to add this for a few data types here in 14.6, and we're working to drive it from 50% coverage to 70% coverage. You can see some examples here with things like LFS objects and MR diffs. From there, we have our memory team who is working to improve the scalability and resilience of our Redis instance. So we have what we would call a Redis persistent service within GitLab, which we use for things like session keys. And it was getting loaded down on our GitLab.com service. And so we want to improve performance on this. And we're doing that by taking those session keys, which are about 70% of the overall size of Redis, and then about 50% of the write throughput, and shift those off to a new Redis instance. And so we are working towards that here in this release by adding support in the application for a second instance, as well as also being able to migrate content without kind of any user-facing disruption. On the scalability note, we are also continuing to work on our Postgres database and improving the headroom of that service as well. And for those of you who've watched previous kickoffs, we are continuing to work on this investment here. And you can see a number of efforts undergoing in parallel between both the database and sharding groups on this topic. So we have our efforts to be able to move the CI content over to that new database. And then we're also going through and ensuring that the application has support for multiple databases. And then we're also in parallel going through and ensuring that all of our tooling around the database itself, like our ability to run migrations and other tasks, also works as well. So we're pursuing all three tracks in parallel here and continuing to push the ball forward in 14.6. Moving forward towards the adoption through usability theme, we are working on performance for our global search functionality across GitLab. And we're doing that by working towards having more of the content people are looking for closer together. And so we are moving our commit content over to its own index. We've seen great performance improvements by having their own indexes for other content types, and expect to have similar performance improvements when searching for commits here as well. The idea is that we'll spread content across fewer shards, and we'll have to kind of query fewer shards to return your results. Similarly, we're working to improve the overall group level search. So project search is very fast right now today. However, group search tends to hit multiple shards. And so we're working to try and understand ways to better group contents within groups together to have a fewer number of shards that Elasticsearch has to go search through to overall improve performance. And so we're working through routing strategies and things like that to try to overall improve, again, that level of performance and speed of results. Finally, as we go through all these performance testings, we are working towards developing a performance testing suite so we can confirm and validate that these performance improvements are actually having the intended effect. And so we're working to develop that for global search as well. Also on the adoption front, we are improving the synchronization status interface for our Geo service. Right now, we tend to show the replication state, and because writes are always going into a GitLab instance, it's never 100% replicated. And so we're doing a better job of showing that all content as of a certain time is replicated to provide more confidence to administrators that the content actually is there. It's just that the latest content is still making its way over as changes continue to occur in the platform. And so we're working to improve this interface to be more transparent and clear about what's actually happening. Last up, on the new market front, we are working towards our FIPS compliance, and we're focusing on the Omnibus instance first and ensuring we can build our various dependencies and other native code with a FIPS compliant OpenSSL version or system version. And so working through those dependencies and ironing out some changes in our build pipeline. And we're also continuing our work on the GitLab operator. The goal here is to be able to be Red Hat certified, which would be great news for our OpenShift customers. But we're also working through additional improvements like zero downtime upgrades for the operator as well, which it can coordinate for our users. So we're looking forward to those, as well as also looking to target additional deployment methods through Operator Hub and Artifact Hub as well, once we are able to bundle with the Operator Lifecycle Manager. So making GitLab overall more available and improving the feature support of our operator. And with that, I'll pass it over to, I think it
David.
David, thank you, David.
There we go. Okay, so let's selected. There we go. Okay, so let's dive into the dev section updates. So starting off with the plan stage, the product planning team is working on a component to display the default hierarchy at the project level. For those who have been watching these calls for a long time here, we've been talking about the work items effort. So this is the first step on being able to show hierarchical views. To show you what that looks like, if you're looking at this wireframe, today, if you're a premium user, you have group level epics. Those have children that are known as issues. And then issues will have a new child referred to as task. And I'll talk about tasks in a minute, but this is going to be a static view to kind of show users how this is laid out today and give them a place in the future to be able to edit this. Likewise, on the ultimate side, it would show you that you have your group level epic, your nestable sub epics, and then of course issues and then tasks. Let's talk about tasks. Tasks are going to be the first work item that is introduced as part of the plan's effort to improve reporting and visibility. A step on the way there is actually a really great usability experience I want to highlight. Here you can see they're working on improving the way GitLab flavored Markdown renders out issue IDs, both in the description and in comments. So today you can do something such as a pound or hash symbol and then put the ID, and that will then link the related issue. But then where it's rendered out by the Markdown, it only shows up as, again, the hash and the number. What the team is working on is introducing the ability to add a plus symbol at the end of that. And that would then tell Markdown to render it out to include not only just the ID, but the title to the related issue as well. Again, it seems like a very small change, but super excited about the power of what that would mean as you begin to look at the details related to the related items. And that takes us directly into the task efforts that the project management team are working on. So task will be the first work item, and it'll be a child off of issues to kind of give you a sense as to what that would look like. So today, people will build task lists within an issue. They'll end up with something similar to this, where they have a list that has checkboxes, and they then check those off as they work on them. The first thing you'll be able to do is rearrange them in the list, but also you can see here, there's a couple of dots here. This will allow you to come in here and create a task work item. And what this will allow users to do is not just have the ability to track that task as a related component, but also be able to have things such as comments and descriptions and all the other things that make issues and epics powerful today. So very excited about this. This is the beginning of their hard work over the last several milestones to be able to become visible in the UI and let people begin to use the work items components. Over to the manage stage. The manage stage is very actively working on several large initiatives. This includes improving InfraDev and security, as well as workspace, which we talked about on a couple of release kickoff calls ago. But a couple of really nice usability improvements I wanted to highlight for you. The Access team is beginning to work on web auth end support. I'm personally excited about this. This is going to allow us to bring in new authentication methods for our product. This includes things such as Apple's Touch ID and Microsoft's Windows Hello. So another great way to let people authenticate into our product. The compliance team is working on introducing their MVC of streaming audit events. This will allow users to be able to send their audit events to an external collector on top of having them be sent into GitLab's collection as well. What I really like about this is that for large enterprises and heavily regulated industries, there's long retention periods that are required. So this will allow our customers to be able to send those events to that external collector, be able to easily search it and keep the retention for as long as they need to for their compliance reasons. To learn more about the streaming audit events, please check out Sam's kickoff video. It's well worth watching. He goes over the problem statements and the use cases and then talks about the MVC and beyond. So definitely worth watching. And then finally, the compliance team is rolling out the ability to set predefined SSH key expiration periods. Today, when you introduce an SSH key, it is immortal. It lives until it's revoked. This will put a lifetime directly onto the SSH key, allowing compliance teams to have better control over access into GitLab, as well as API controls. Over the create stage, they're actively working on their InfraDev and performance improvements. There's two usability improvements I want to highlight for you. First, the content editor team. The editor team is working on improving the way you switch between the content editor and the raw markdown editor. We talked about this with regards to Wiki, a couple of release kickoff calls. And now if you go into the Wiki, you can actually click and select to switch over to the new content editor. The team is looking to continue to improve this and roll that ability to easily switch across other parts of our product. And then finally, again, this might seem like a simple usability improvement, but it's, in my opinion, a really great usability improvement. The team is working on consolidating the edit button. This was rolled out behind a feature flag and a lot of user research was done. In fact, the research actually started a long time ago by the source code team before the editor team took it over. What this will kind of look like for you is here within the file viewer, you can see that we have two edit buttons. That is a little bit confusing. It's cognitive load. That's going to be reduced down to a single button that'll default to the web IDE. But of course, you want to switch to the other editor. Easily click the little down arrow and select just the raw file editor. Of course, as we continue to support additional editors, as well as third-party integrations, those will also be able to show up here as an option for editing. And then to wrap up the dev section with the ecosystem stage, Ecosystem launched a new team called Foundations earlier this year. We've not talked about them at all on release kickoff calls. However, I wanted to highlight some of the work they're doing this quarter. The Foundations team is responsible for our Pajamas design system, the GitLab documentation site, and things like our settings and navigation. They're very much focused on making the foundational components of the product. I'll try that again. The foundational components of the product, there we go, as best as they can be. And so what they're working on this quarter is integrating additional pajamas components into the design system and then rolling those components out across the product. This is a really great way to improve our usability of the product and improve our users' happiness. Today, we have experiences across the product that are not similar, and that's due to different components being used for the same task. This will begin to address that over this quarter and, of course, beyond as they continue to improve upon the design system. So with that, I will hand it over to Hillary to go over the SEC section.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Go ahead and share out my screen here. Okay, hopefully you're seeing the right thing there. So for this release, we still have a couple teams that are solely dedicated to supporting GitLab reliability, security, and performance work with the focus on improving error budget and bug burn down. But we also have some great new functionality coming in 14.6, and all the items that I'm going to talk about fall under our AST leadership theme. The first item I want to highlight is our planned delivery of the ability to manually create vulnerability records. So today we can create a vulnerability record from a result of one of our native scanners or one of our integrated third-party scanners. But if you're using a scanner that doesn't have a GitLab integration, or you need to create a vulnerability record in GitLab from, say, a manual security test that your security team is performing, you can only do that via the API today. So in 14.6, we plan to provide that capability from the UI as well. So that ideally results in a seamless user experience that produces vuln records that are, for all intents and purposes, really indistinguishable from those that we create automatically. And it'll make it easier for customers to store any type of vulnerability record that they might need to inside of GitLab. The next item I want to highlight is functionality to display container scanning packages in our dependency list. So today we only display application dependencies in the dependency list, and many customers will point to that as a problem with respect to providing a software bill of materials, because they're expecting to also see operating system packages. So once this work is in, anytime a user runs a container image scan, the operating system packages discovered by that scan will also populate into the dependency list. The third item I want to highlight is an iteration on our delivery of DAST on-demand scanning. In 14.6, we plan to release a new view in the UI for on-demand scans that will enable users to see a list of all the scans that they've triggered, along with all of the important details about that scan. So to show you a little bit what that looks like, here's a quick peek at a design for this feature. So as you can see, after a user creates a new on-demand scan, it'll be populated into this list, and it'll surface all of the relevant details about the scan, including when it was run, the target URL that was scanned, the current status of the scan, and then once they're ready, a link to the results. And so today users can fire off an on-demand scan, but it can be difficult to remember when you last ran one, or what exactly was scanned, or if a scan has finished. And so this is an important usability improvement because it provides much better visibility for the user in terms of what's been done and removes uncertainty about the current status of a given scan. And then finally, there are a couple items that we talked about in last month's kickoff that will actually land in 14.6. So since I already covered them, I won't go into too much detail, but those items are the added support for SaaS scan execution policies, which, to remind you, that gives users the ability to require that a SaaS scan is always run in their pipeline. And then also some work that we're doing to make it easier for users to leverage our container image scanning capabilities if they happen to be using an image naming convention that's different from what our scanner expects. And with that, I will turn it over to Kenny.
Awesome, thank you, Hillary. Yeah, let me share my screen. Make sure I get the right one. Okay, there we go. I'm going to cover the ops section that includes the stages of verify, package, release, configure, and monitor. I'm going to do some tab magic that I learned from David of organizing all of my items by theme in these tabs that you can see in my browser. I had a number of items that I wanted to highlight in GitLab hosted first. Like many teams across the ops section, we are prioritized towards making sure that we hit error budgets and are burning down bugs that impact GitLab.com scalability and GitLab hosted version scalability. So that's happening kind of ubiquitously across all teams within the ops section. I wanted to hit a couple of the highlights for those. The first is many of our GitLab.com users use our shared runners, and we want to provide better visibility into their usage of those runners beyond just when they're getting charged for quotas that they've paid for or are consuming. So we want to give more visibility into your CI minute usage, both by month and by project. Here's a view of the designs for that and what the graph would look like. So really looking forward to providing more usage visibility to our shared runner users on GitLab.com. The next is a series of bugs that are related to our testing group. And I wanted to highlight these because the testing group deals primarily with large testing artifacts. And that is a really, can be a painful process for developers if they see that their job has just been completed. And then the process of actually getting and analyzing the test results takes so much time. So we really want this to be performant. This is the kind of delightful experience that says, my job just ran, I can immediately get and access the key results that I need to see. So making sure that this remains performant is a high priority for us. And then the next are related to pages. We're adding both rate limiting per domain on pages, as well as making sure that our pages response times for large pages, so this is static content, is responsive. On the theme of adoption through usability, many users have started using our trigger jobs that allow you to use parent-child pipelines. But one of the problems is that if you have a job that triggers many pipelines, many child pipelines, it's hard to retry just one specific pipeline that's been triggered. So a first step for us is to create a page where you can actually see the triggered job. And you can see in the corner, we'll be adding as a first part of this view, the ability to retry just that specific pipeline. So by giving an artifact for this is the triggered pipeline, we can then allow you to retry manually just a specific downstream pipeline, a really great usability improvement. The next in our runner group is about stale runners. So as we're pursuing this broad vision of runner enterprise management, fleet management of large fleets of runners, the first thing we want to do is highlight where you have stale runners, runners that haven't phoned home or haven't checked in some period of time. It really helps to remove, if there are errors when your runners were being built, remove some of the cruft of runners that maybe were ephemeral and have since been, are no longer available, but are still showing up in GitLab systems. So excited to see us working on stale runners. I think even the runner team said one of their themes for this is making stale runners a thing. So excited to see that. The next is around deployments. As Anoop talked about, deployments is a big focus for us in the coming year, but we're going to start with improving the current view in the environments page. So there's been a big redesign of this that has been slowly incrementing. The next thing we're going to be doing is showing a better visualization of the last deployment job and commit. This will help users more quickly ascertain what the latest commit was and what the current status of a deployment is when viewing the environments page where they might have a number of environments. The next items I wanted to highlight are things that we're working towards. Some of them are in design and solution validation, but I know that our users are really excited about. The first one is simplifying the view when doing auto merge with using merge trains. The interaction between using squash commits and starting the merge train after the pipeline succeeds can be confusing to users. So we really want to simplify the process when using merge trains for determining exactly what will happen when you click, I'm ready to merge this. And then this is a particular bug that can be confusing that oftentimes when using merge trains, you are used to the kind of, in this case, it's usually the blue add to merge train button, but sometimes the full green merge train button appears briefly while waiting for the merge train to queue. We want to make sure that we're really specific in our UI about what actions you can take and that merge trains are set up on a specific project when they're set up. Next in our testing stage or testing group, we want to improve the artifacts page. Today, it's difficult to ascertain key information about an artifact, what job triggered it, what the pipeline and commit were that triggered it, when it was created, what the size of that artifact is. These are typically testing artifacts. So we're going to be adding a new UI to showcase pertinent information about the available artifacts from your recent pipelines. In the pipeline authoring group, we have this really exciting feature for showcasing a kind of simulated run of your pipeline. So what that will look like is in your pipeline editor, you'll be able to validate by doing a specific pipeline trigger. Maybe I want to know what this pipeline will look like when a commit is made to the default branch or when a commit is made to a feature branch. And it will run the pipeline interpreting the rules in such a way that it will give you the result of of that pipeline run given that specific trigger. Really exciting and will allow users to quickly validate their pipelines. And then lastly, we're going to be adding the ability to search and sort on tags in the container registry. It's super exciting. I know a lot of users struggle with sorting in the container registry, and by adding this GraphQL endpoint, we'll be able to enable searching and sorting directly on your container registry images. The last topic I wanted to talk about was new markets. And so a big part of new markets for the ops section is enabling the runners to run everywhere. So as Josh mentioned in the GitLab instance, we're also working on FIPS compliance for the GitLab runner, improving our operator support to include Power 9 architectures, IBM Power 9 architectures, and adding support for the runner for Windows Server version 20.02. A couple of other items that I wanted to highlight in the ops section about adding new markets are the ability to bulk delete container images. This is important for new markets because as larger organizations adopt our container and package registries, they really need the ability to manage the storage costs of that registry, and adding a user experience for bulk deleting those container images is especially important to them. Next, we want to make sure that, there was the UI for that. Next, we want to make sure that we support the auto DevOps with our Kubernetes agent. The Kubernetes agent is particularly important to organizations that have a high preference for security and making sure that there is there isn't a direct connection between GitLab instances and production. And so making sure that auto DevOps and the rest of our product works well with Kubernetes agent is critical. We're going to be adding support for our EKS project template. We have support today for the ability to create GKE clusters using a project template that GitLab provides. We want to provide the same thing for our Amazon EKS users who are wanting to make sure that they deploy a best practice version of their cluster that they can then attach the agent to. And then lastly, we're continuing to expand our ability to provide incident management by adding incident timelines. And I think these timelines are really cool. They allow for the summarization of an incident by adding specific comments with specific dates that allow a outside observer after the firefight to be able to quickly ascertain what happened when through the course of an incident, really aiding the ability to do retrospectives and have lessons learned from these incidents. So those are the really exciting new features that we're working on in 14.6 across the ops section. As others have mentioned, the videos for each one of these are available. I'd highly encourage you to look at each group's kickoff videos. And with that, Anoop, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Kenny. This is an amazing list of things we're working on. I heard a lot of things. I can't even summarize all of them, but let me take an attempt at the highlights. Then great work on Geo to making sure it works when needed. So all the measures we are putting in to ensure that, and then measures for ensuring search performance is consistent. Awesome. Helping our PubSec customers be confident with their FIPS compliant GitLab, including the FIPS compliant GitLab runner. Super exciting. And generally in compliance, right, with streaming audit events and predefined SSH key expiration periods, it's all great. I'm also excited with the progress of GitLab operator work. Continued improvements on pages, adding rate limits and improving response times for large pages. Again, to me, reliability, performance themes, ability to retry specific downstream pipelines. Again, to me, reliability and usability, manually creating vulnerability records from the UI, adding OS packages into dependency lists, really helps enhance our single app experience. And then same thing with the SaaS scan execution policies. I saw a lot of quality of work life improvements, supporting auto DevOps with Kubernetes agents, makes it easy to adopt them, incident timelines to aid retros, improvements on auth flexibility, work items, right? And starting with tasks, and love the plus change to improve reporting and visibility. I am looking forward to how the team raises the discoverability of this plus, because I think once people know it, they will use it a lot. Switching seamlessly between content editor and raw markdown, something I personally use a lot, so I'm excited about it. Same thing with the consolidation of the edit button. Small but really important, meaningful usability improvements that improve the quality of life. Continuing the march towards pajamas component integration, making deployments and status easier to read on environment page, all again in the job to be done for a user, really important improvements. I also love our focus on cost management for our users, the ability to search and sort tags on container registry and to bulk delete container images, is a great cost management capability that we can work with our customers to reduce their costs and frankly our cost as well. Monthly pipeline duration for projects, and by month, again, a great way to help users see what they're using and then help them manage their costs better. Again, I think this is going to be a fantastic release to end the year. I'm looking forward to it. Have a great month, and we'll see you again next month.